I really want to have a look at this before we get to the two fun topics. So let's just have a look at this video quickly. Okay. It's called The Death of Fact Checkers. I think this has got to do with Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, it does have to do with Mark Zuckerberg and what he's doing to Facebook and the trend that I think social media is going to take this year, which is, very, very interesting.
All right. Most people watching this are probably quite familiar with the term fact checkers, but just in case you're not, it's a term that implies arbitration of the truth, oftentimes with regards to politics, at least in the United States, and it's a concept that is extremely rife with controversy. On one side, you have a common belief that misinformation is an existential threat to democracy and that those who spread it, or otherwise say things that are incorrect as per the agreed upon narrative at the time, should be completely removed from social media and public discourse. On the other, you have advocates of free speech who believe that suppression of that right is a far worse offense than any misinformation could ever possibly be, while rigidly asserting that whether or not something is true or goes against public perception or even offends the sensibilities of their fellow citizens is entirely irrelevant because the right of the speaker to say it transcends.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. It's been a while since I've done this. This video is from Up Echelon. He does a lot of cool videos. I love this guy. He's really, really awesome. Please excuse me for not telling you who the creator was. But he made a video about the death of fact checkers and Mark Zuckerberg coming out recently and talking about his changes to Meta and to Facebook and what's going to happen there. But it's a very interesting video. I'm not going to watch the full thing. We're going to get the gist of it. We're going to react a bit, talk a bit about it because it's very interesting.
Potential right for the government, businesses, or social media platforms to stop them. For the past few years, it almost felt like background noise, at least in my view. It was certainly happening, fact-checking all over the place, but there wasn't really anything we could do to change it. Private social media companies are going to do whatever it is they want to do, and maybe long-term impacts like governmental regulation over a multi-year period resulting from certain elected officials might have some sort of impact, but boots on the ground, normal, everyday people had very little effect on the overall concept of fact-checkers. Without getting too far into the weeds, fact-checking was particularly prevalent during the rise of COVID-19 and is also extremely common when it comes to political discourse.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense that fact-checkers aren't, but in fact, the employees of the company that are fact-checking. How can you be objective and have a free mind when sending out information to the general public? That seems counterintuitive.
A couple of high-profile examples would be when fact-checkers adamantly labeled, or shut down rather, discussion of the Wuhan lab leak theory for COVID-19, the origins of it, or the Hunter Biden laptop story, which took hold at the climax of the 2020 presidential race. You might actually see down below this video right now some kind of stupid little blue banner with a link to like Wikipedia or something because I said COVID and Hunter Biden laptop, and YouTube is making sure you know the truth with some boilerplate here are the facts kind of statement about whatever issue it perceives me to be talking about. I had that happen recently with a story about leaked files on a hacking forum because I mentioned...
Doesn't seem to be anything like that, but...
Area 51 with this dumbass definition of what Area 51 really is down below, even though it had basically nothing to do with the actual video, and there was nothing even remotely untrue that I said in its entirety. But regardless... fact checkers over the past 8 or so years, it feels like, became a pretty ubiquitous concept online. That is, they were until now. It's a bit of an unexpected news break in my view, but recently Facebook, now called Meta, is apparently distancing themselves from the idea of fact checkers immediately before the incoming Trump administration takes power, which has led to a very interesting divide in public opinion about whether or not that's a good thing. As I said earlier, one side says...
Imagine that. This is Mark Zuckerberg trying to get on the good side of Trump. Let's be very clear about this right now, because Trump ain't taking no shit. He's not taking any prisoners. I swear to God, that guy is out for revenge. So, of course, all of these companies are going to fall in line because they're not the government, okay? They don't own military. They can't come into your building and shut things down or, do anything like the sort. They're just corporations. They have financial and somewhat social power, but when it comes to real power, they don't really have any compared to the government.
Yes, the other says no, but I want to take a deeper look at the announcement, what it means, and...
Oh, hold on. Rafi, you're in grade 10. You passed. Congratulations! Good job.
Who it impacts, because in my view, it's a very clear turning of the tide, if you will, and I wouldn't be surprised if we look back on this 5 or 10 years from now as an inflection point in the world of online discourse. My premise is very simple. Fact-checking, in its basic rudimentary form, is absolutely good and extremely necessary.
I agree.
However, fact-checking as we see it on social media here and now today is a complete joke, governed and manipulated by people who are deliberately bastardizing the concept as a result of their own intrinsic bias. And if we can't strip the system down to a much more neutral baseline...
I mean, did you guys not remember CNN and Fox News changing the color of Joe Rogan's face when he said that he was using a different drug to the one that they were peddling on their news channels? They literally faked that shit. If the mainstream media had handled COVID information differently, I think they would be in a better place. But the fact that they completely construed the fact checkers, it completely destroyed their credibility as news givers.
It really just shouldn't exist. Here's the announcement from Zuckerberg. He did a 5-minute video talking about what type of changes will be made. And it's also widely reported in the news cycle. But the gist of it is that they're dialing back their content moderation algorithms, reintroducing more civic content to the algorithm. That's probably going to suck. I can already feel it. Eliminating their use of fact checkers in favor of a community-sourced alternative, similar to what Twitter is doing under Elon Musk. And a few more things that I honestly don't really care about because I don't use Facebook. The important thing here, obviously, is the removal of fact checkers, which hopefully signals a wider shift in the social media space. But let me explain precisely why I think that way, because again, the basic premise of fact checking is completely necessary in a modern digital world. I'll start with this. Facebook uses a well-documented approach to fact-checking, which relies on an organization called IFCN, which is the International Fact-Checking Network. That system, however, was only implemented in 2020. Prior to that, Facebook used more direct partners, such as Snopes.com, for a multi-year period, ending in 2019. Interestingly, Snopes.com is actually one of the signatories for the IFCN, which means that Facebook is actually still working with them to a degree. It's just not a direct link between the two companies. Considering its direct partnership from 2016 to 2019 and its current approved status with the International Fact-Checking Network, Snopes is the example I chose to focus on for today while discussing the concept of fact-checking. Facebook is obviously doing this because it perceives fact-checking to be detrimental to its business. By itself, that means nothing. But one of the reasons directly cited by Mark Zuckerberg is political bias and loss of trust. Well, in order for Snopes to be approved by the IFCN, it has to go through an evaluation process, which has happened 4 separate times in the past 8 or so years. Twice during the time it was directly partnered with Facebook. Bear with me here. One of the criteria in that process reads, quote, "Non-partisanship policy evidence required. Please share evidence of your policy preventing staff from direct involvement in political parties and advocacy organizations." End quote.
Wow, that's interesting. I did not know that fact checkers had to go through an actual application process to become fact checkers. That's crazy.
And this is very obviously on its face a good rule to have, because when fact checking on social media is so inextricably linked to politics every single day, you really can't have people arbitrating the truth that are donating to or directly affiliated with one side of the political spectrum. It's called bias. And even if that writer or the employer thinks that they're capable of being unbiased, they're not. Here's the problem. If you look at the actual assessment that was done here in 2018, which was during their partnership with Facebook, you can see the responses that were given by the person applying, or rather organization applying. And the response that Snopes gave reads, quote, "See the statements at the head of the staff page and the revenue page." End quote. That's it. Well, deciding to go down the rabbit hole, because why not go down the rabbit hole, I went and looked at the staff page, where way down at the bottom, there's a note that says, quote, "Members of our editorial staff are precluded from donating to or participating in political campaigns, political party activities, or political..."
Wow, just the level of complete bullshit. I mean, do you guys remember a little company named Cambridge Analytica? If you don't know what that story is, I really highly recommend watching the Netflix documentary Decoded, or I forget what I think it's called Decoded, where it's it basically tells the story of how Cambridge Analytica used Facebook to literally manipulate political votes. And if that was the case, where the hell was Snopes during all of that saga? And that went on for years and years and years, where they were literally shaping people's opinions by pushing specific posts and, triggering emotive responses from posts that would get people to think differently, to kind of push a subtle, imperceptible change through people's minds. So eventually they would change their political views. And that 100% worked. So where was Snopes when that was happening?
Advocacy organizations, end quote. That sounds fine, right? But something told me to start checking. So I picked a name and I checked. I picked Jordan Lyles, who is a senior reporter, obviously part of the editorial staff, working at Snopes for the past 8 years in various different positions. And I looked up political campaign contributions, which turned up this right here, showing a bunch of donations by people named Jordan Lyles to various committees and politicians. That's no big deal, but small problem. 5 of those donations in 2018 come from someone named Jordan Lyles, who was employed at the time by a company called BarDav. And this is where I went way far down the rabbit hole, because BarDav was apparently a joint company created by Barbara and David Mickelson, founders of Snopes, where each of them owned a 50% share. It's the parent organization.
I'm unbiased because I do not care about other people's shits unless I care about them. Have you ever heard the statement about God and the devil? You may not believe in the devil, but he sure as hell believes in you.
Of Snopes.com. And connecting the dots now, Jordan Lyles, while working for Snopes at the level of video producer, was donating actively to Act Blue, which is a Democratic super PAC. And that was the first name I chose. From here, it got even worse. It kind of spiraled out of control. Because
how is that possible? I thought we just read that they're not supposed to donate to donating part of the political, and then when this guy's donating to fucking, how is this allowed? Donald J. Trump for president, and this guy's donating thousands of dollars. Thousands. What is going on?
Plagiarized articles between 2015 and 2019 under an alias, and these are the people that are fact-checking you. Still not even remotely done, because if that was the domino chain I found after randomly picking a single name off of...
The co-founder of Snopes wrote dozens of plagiarized articles for fact-checking sites. I somewhat don't blame the Zuckerbergs and the social media if they want to move away from this fact-checking stuff. It's done by humans with agendas, right?
Their staff list. What was I going to find next? Let's find out. The next name I picked, trying to spread out across various different positions, was the Chief Revenue Officer, Justin Wohl. One person shows up in the political donation archives who simultaneously gave money to Act Blue as well as the Biden campaign, but the employer of this person is Salon. I thought to myself, well, that can't be him. But that little voice came back in my head because this person working at Salon, was also a chief revenue officer. What are the chances of that happening? So I checked the LinkedIn page, and wait a second, Justin Wohl, according to his employment history on his own social media,
oh my God,
simultaneously worked as the chief revenue officer at Snopes and Salon.
And we're supposed to believe anything that comes out of the internet? Anything? We're really supposed to think about that?
In political parties. It doesn't specify who or how or when. It just says
we're inching closer and closer to a dystopian future. Okay? I swear to you right now, the governments of the world push you and push us like a little bit every single day until we get to a point where we're like, this sucks, stop. Then they stop, right? Then they push a little further and push a little further with something different until it's enough and we say stop, and they stop. And eventually, when we've taken 5 kilometers worth of steps and we can't see the line that they've drawn back in the day because they just pushed the line a little further every day, and we're going to look up one day and realize, how the fuck did we get here? I don't want to just jump into the negative shit for 2025. Like, for real, I believe there's some good stuff that's going to happen this year. I really do. I feel like the war in Russia is going to end. I feel like there's going to be some great developments made in AI. The death of fact checkers is probably a good thing. Well, it's pros and cons. It's good and it's bad, right? Because we can't have people with agendas fact checking information that's, coming from a human with bias and blind sides and their own agendas, and, they may be getting cash from political parties. But anyway, the point is that social media has gotten out of control on social media, and it needs to be tied to some kind of identification in order for you to use the platform so that you can be identified if you say some heinous shit or do some heinous shit. Okay, now again, having AI fact check stuff or having AI at least regulate information is probably the best way to go. Now, whoever creates the AI may build in some biases and some objective bias that could prevent the AI from. But at the end of the day, AI is impartial. It's not human. It doesn't think. It doesn't care about your opinions. It's just going to spit out the facts. So that's where I think AI could really help in disseminating information and really protect us from the bullshit that you see. So at the end of every video, I'm just going to mention, which I'm going to do right now, is I react to content because I don't know about this stuff. And this is the first time I'm watching this video. And, I wouldn't know about this video any other way. So all I'm doing is what I would do in my daily life, except I am streaming it to the world and reacting with my opinion to what I see. And that's the only reason I make react content, because I watch stuff that's interesting to me and I'm trying to critically think about the world and the information that I receive, and hopefully anyone who watches the video will do the same. And that's the reason why I'm reacting to content. As much as some people may not like it, I'm still going to carry on doing it, because I believe it's wildly important now more than ever on this planet to really cultivate your critical thinking muscle in your brain, because it will not only make you smarter, but it'll make the people around you smarter. And that's the goal at the end of the day, is to build each other up and to make each other better, like one step at a time. So